they are slinging about each other and to each other, I want no part of.
The mudslinging ain't no different from what Drake and Kendrick was doing.
It is different.
Not to me.
But
throwing around and all that stuff.
But it is different.
In contrast to his coverage of Drake and Kendrick, Emanny criticizes Joe Budden for his hypocrisy in covering Cardi B and Nicki Minaj. Cardi B and Nicki Minaj have gone to the mattresses on each other, in case you were unaware. And sure, it's Twitter, blah, 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 but they're beginning to bring up some really insane things that have gotten really unpleasant, like weaponizing the spectrum. The Joe Budden Podcast's cast began to exclaim, "We're not talking about that," because it had grown so vicious. "We're not discussing this." All of that jargon. However, Emanny correctly noted that when the Drake-Kendrick thing became popular, everyone was much in agreement. I'm referring to elements such as the phony daughter angle and the PDF plot. Joe Budden then reacts with a string of, "Hey man, these are guys. It may proceed differently due to these guys." He continues by saying, "The most ridiculous theory I've ever heard from individuals like Joe Budden." And DJ Head, "I've never heard a more shocking theory than this one. Completely stupid." And I'm surprised that media people are saying this because it reflects the absurdity of today's hip-hop media. According to Joe Budden, Drake and Kendrick were meant to get together and fight.
Offered to fight. Some people say that.
Additionally, it's different because, that won't occur with Cardi and Nicki. What on earth are you people saying? There would never be a fight between Drake and Kendrick. That plotline simply bothers me because it suggests that two extremely well-known men will meet in a back alley and that their altercation will stop there. It doesn't operate that way. You don't believe someone will go rap about losing the fight? Now, hurry up. In any case, I thought the tale was intriguing since it exposed Joe Budden's prejudice against Nicki Minaj. Now, you may be thinking, Danny, he called it fair if you listen to the podcast. If you listen to it again, you'll see that Joe Budden and Nicki Minaj are very much in agreement.
To even have to consider who's the queen of hip-hop at the moment.
Stop it.
I don't
Who
have
else
it as
do
a
we consider in that conversation?
There's nobody.
I don't want to get to talk. If I'm Nicki Minaj, I don't want to hear that.
Conversation.
Stop speaking about you like you in the same breath as me. You've never toured.
I'm here to state that I have nothing against Cardi B or Nicki Minaj personally. I'm just watching this. And from the way Joe was speaking in this episode, it's clear that he has a certain bond with Nicki that he doesn't have with Cardi, and it's highlighted each time he talks about the two. Undoubtedly, he makes an effort to hide his excessive support for Nicki by elevating Cardi.
Present that side of the argument because I'm not picking a horse in the fight right now. Right now, I'm not.
However, there was a crucial moment in this that made me think of the Drake versus Kendrick story, in which he was essentially imagining situations in which one artist may murder the other. At that point, he stated that Cardi B could be removed from this situation by Nicki Minaj.
Dope enough and powerful enough to where if you don't want to hear from her no more, you could put another 8 years on top of the 7 she's gonna put on herself, and we'll never hear from Cardi B again.
Implying that she ought to side with other people.
But it wouldn't be by herself. See, part of being a rapper is knowing when to align and who to align with.
What does this plotline sound like to you now? Remember Kendrick versus Drake, also known as the 20v1? Is Joe implying that Cardi B is in a bad place? Perhaps the label is finished with her?
Label might be off you. You took a 7 year break on your own.
For instance, if Nicki Minaj were to shift alliances and stand with other rappers, in this case someone like Ice Spice, it could dramatically change the direction of Cardi B's career. Yes, I do think this episode helped me understand the industry a little better. Now, is Joe Budden quietly giving Nicki some strategic advice? It feels like history is repeating itself. According to Joe Budden, when Drake was facing challenges, it required a team effort to match him, and Cardi might find herself in a similar situation. Don't be surprised if Ice Spice or artists like Lotto decide to collaborate on a record using that same group strategy. Then perhaps Nicki Minaj could make an appearance on a third verse with a sharp message toward Cardi, echoing the kind of surprise moments we've seen in other big rap battles. Cardi B would then be under real pressure to respond, just like Drake was when certain verses became public. But remember, just as with Drake's tour, timing can complicate responses. Life events, projects, and personal situations can affect an artist's ability to reply immediately. And I know some of you are wondering, Danny, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Well, here's why. Joe Budden understands the music industry deeply. If I can get people to message me privately about podcasts, behind-the-scenes talks, and what's really happening with shows like the Joe Budden Podcast, No Jumper, and The Breakfast Club, then I know this conversation is hitting the right spot. Think about what Joe Budden gains in all this. He's in touch with executives, artists, and insiders. There's no doubt he's knowledgeable. In fact, during this episode, he admitted he might have said more than he intended to. That kind of slip usually means he knows valuable inside details, but realizes later that he revealed too much. For example, Nicki Minaj took a long break from music, about 7 years, and many still wonder why. Was it disagreements with her label? Was it personal choices? Regardless, Nicki's music library is incredibly strong, and her performance ability is undeniable. Joe Budden's commentary about Cardi and Nicki not communicating openly makes me see things differently, because even the idea of them talking changes the dynamics of the conversation. Nicki has always been a focused and dedicated rapper, and that dedication has made her a major force. Cardi, on the other hand, has shown growth and resilience, and her development is clear through her music. Even just being brought up in this kind of debate benefits her in a way, since it keeps her relevant. Joe, however, sometimes doesn't acknowledge that point, which makes it feel like he's leaning toward Nicki's side. Emanny also made a sharp observation, pointing out the way Joe Budden covered Drake versus Kendrick compared to how he talks about Cardi versus Nicki. It feels like he's framing them differently, perhaps because of the gender dynamics. But in reality, this could become just as big or bigger than the Drake and Kendrick debate. And because of the circles Cardi B and Nicki Minaj move in, this could escalate into one of the most intense rivalries New York City's hip-hop scene has ever witnessed. I said it, this might become one of the most heated moments in rap history. Now, that doesn't mean it will necessarily go too far, it just means the potential is there. And that potential is one reason many artists are careful about how they speak on it. If you look closely at the comments, the interviews, and the timing, you can see the signs. I predict that before Nicki Minaj's next album drops, we might hear a record produced by names like Metro Boomin, maybe with Future or Kendrick Lamar, featuring a Nicki verse with subtle or direct shots at Cardi. And if that happens, the entire cycle of rap battles and responses begins all over again. Now, I know some of you will say, Danny, this is a reach, or Danny, that's not true. But here's my point. Pay close attention to what Joe Budden actually says about Cardi and Nicki. His language here is very similar to how he used to talk about Drake and Kendrick. He has insider knowledge, he's well connected, and even when he tries not to, he often reveals things between the lines. When he avoids mentioning certain names or dodges questions, that's often a clue that he's protecting relationships and holding back information. Look at the networks involved. Rock Nation, Atlantic, Nicki Minaj's team, and other industry power players. Joe knows he has to balance his independence with his connections. He wants his podcast to feel autonomous, but the truth is, hip-hop media doesn't exist in a vacuum. Labels, executives, and relationships all play a role in shaping what gets said and what doesn't. Joe is navigating those waters carefully, but if you listen closely, you can still hear the hints of what's really happening behind the scenes.